Brea. I guess I'm first up in doing these presentations, so hopefully this goes well. So my assignment was to present to you exercise 5 from chapter 3, which asks us to do the 3 financial statements for the company of Sandhill Company. So they give us the table here of the transactions for the month of August 2017. So for starters, we start off with doing the income statement. That's the first financial report that we need to complete. See down here, I've already done all the reports and verified it through Wiley that my answers were correct. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through this as we go along. Sandhill Company income statement for the month ended August 31st, 2017. So this is a record of the month's transactions of revenues and expenses. So we start with our revenues, which we have the service revenue here of $9,400 service revenue. So we put that into our statement here, and that's the only revenue that we have for the month. Then we move on to our expenses. We have a rent expense of $820, our salaries and wages of $2,800, and our utilities expense of $280. And you'll see all those right here. The rent expense, salaries, and utilities, all under the expenses column. And then we total up our expenses, and then we deduct our expenses from our revenue, and we have a net income of $5,500. Okay, once we've completed the income statement, we can move on to doing the retained earnings statements for the month. And that is for, again, the month ending August 31st, 2017. And we start with our beginning retained earnings. And since this is the beginning of the month, we're just starting our business out, we have no retained earnings. So we input 0 there. Then we add in our net income, which we have from up here on our income statement of $5,500. So we add that to our beginning retained earnings, and we get a total of $5,500. Then we need to deduct whatever dividends that were handed out for the month. And you'll see up here that we distributed $2,700 in dividends. So we need to go back down here to our returned earnings statement and deduct $2,700 from our total retained earnings. And we get $2,800 for the end of the month retained earnings. And once we have completed the retained earnings statement, we can do our balance sheet. And remember, our balance sheet is just a snapshot in time. So this is just for August 31st, 2017. And we start out with our assets, beginning with our current assets. We have our cash, accounts receivable, and supplies. And all of that is up here in our table. We have our accounts receivables. Now you'll need to deduct 510 from 6,000, and that's how we get a total of 5,490. And we have to do the same thing with our cash. We have to compute all of these ins and outs of cash. So our positive and negative cash flow here with an ending total for cash is 12,360. So we do the cash first, then the accounts receivable, and our supplies of $630. We have just a one-time transaction here of $630 for supplies. Okay, so once we have completed all the current assets, we total them up, and we have a total of $18,480. And next in our assets, we enter the equipment. The equipment on the table shows that we spent $5,100 on equipment. and that's the only transaction for the equipment. So we enter that just below the current assets and add it to our current assets for a total asset amount of $23,580. Okay, so that completes our assets. Then we move on to our liabilities and stockholders' equity, starting with our current liabilities. We have accounts payable of $1,180, and find that up here, accounts payable. So you have to compute these numbers, starting with the 3,400 minus 2,500 and add in the 2,800 or 280, I'm sorry. And that gives us our accounts payable of $1,180. Next, we need to put in our stockholders' equity. We have common stock of $19,600, which is here on our table, $19,600. And after we put in the common stock, we're going to pull our retained earnings, and we can find that number from our retained earnings statement that we did prior to the balance sheet. So our total retained earnings for August 31st was $2,800. So we enter that in here, add those two together, the common stock and retained earnings, for a total stockholders' equity of $22,400. Add that to our liabilities, and we get a total of $23,580, and for our total liabilities and stockholders' equity. And the way we know that is correct is that it matches the same total that we have for our assets, which we know the accounting equation is assets equals liabilities plus stockholders' equity. Hopefully this helps you get through this exercise, and best of luck to all of you. Thank you.